Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Admiral, you did state in your testimony about the need for $2 billion to begin to catch up, and I understand the pressures the service has been under, and I'm always endeavored to support additional funding. But even in this 5-year outline you provided us, you don't, any one of those years hit the $2 billion. I mean, it looks like roughly 800, 600, 400, 200, 300 million short. So that totals up to, well over like $1.4 billion or something like that. So how does this reflect being able to catch up on the $2 billion a year?
Congressman, I'm glad you brought that up because what that does reflect is fiscal guidance. And we are a service that has lived within fiscal guidance, and fiscal guidance is not getting the mission done for us. So the 5-year, those numbers that you see that don't approach $2 billion, those are the constraints of living within fiscal guidance.
Okay, meaning you're being dictated to in terms of what you can ask for?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And whoever is dictating that you come up with numbers that are not adequate. Just like the record to reflect that. A quick question about the icebreakers. There was one report recently that, if we bought a group standardized design 4 or 5, we could get the price down after the first one. And then there was a question about militarization. And I guess my question would be, and I don't know if you're the appropriate person, but it seems to me that, I could envision a point at which, the Navy is not going to be able to get assets up into what is basically going to become a seasonal shipping lane and an area of potential conflict between ourselves and the Russians, given the extraordinary claims they're making in the Arctic. And, maybe the Navy should be paying for these icebreakers, and you guys operate them. What do you think?
Well, we already have an integrated program office stood up with the Navy and $150 million in the Navy shipbuilding account. That builds 20% of an icebreaker. I would like to see 100% of the first icebreaker, then look at block buy, and at that point I'm agnostic in terms of source of funding. Does it support Homeland Security? Does it support defense? Does it support the United States of America? And most importantly, it answers that question. We have unique sovereign interests that other nations are encroaching upon. As you mentioned, Russia is claiming all the way up to the North Pole. Right. We're just sitting there watching that happen. We need a means to exercise our sovereignty in these high latitudes, and we are severely lacking in that. We will need that legislative approval to do block buys, but beyond this first icebreaker, we need to look at a block buy of icebreakers and accelerate the build-out of this program.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. On to the issue of the security on the Potomac. Have there been or could there be discussions with the Secret Service regarding something less than a bank-to-bank, total closure over a couple of mile section of the river?
I happened to fly over that very same stretch of river late yesterday afternoon, over the golf course. As you mentioned, there's no foliage, so it is clearly exposed from the riverfront up to the clubhouse. We're working with the 3 canoe groups, the kayak groups, to allow them passage on the Maryland side of the Potomac River, and then once you get beyond that, you enter Class 1 rapids, which you will not take an inner tube down. So we're looking at striking a balance between the two. So as you have brought up, and Ranking Member Garamendi as well have elevated this issue, we listened and we are making that accommodation to the public. Okay,
for just the organized groups, or would that include individual canoeists?
So we've met with the American Canoe Association, with the groups that haul out there, and as long as they stay to the Maryland side of the Potomac River, they can pass clearly when the security zone is in effect.
Okay, I hadn't seen that notice or that change in the notice, so that's welcome news. And would that accommodate the kids in the camp too?
It would.
Okay, that's very good news then. Okay. Thank you. I'll look forward to seeing. Now, is that a final disposition because you had a pending rule? Is that?
Well, I read your letters.
Yeah.
And rather than read it, I had to see it.
Okay.
And meeting with our staff, the sector commander, is we can make an accommodation here.
Okay, excellent. Okay, well, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.